Join myself and the Queen of NLP, Teri Holland. Move forward and past hindrances and obstacles to being all that you can be.
How many of you have experienced your entire life just falling apart? Is anyone, am I the only one who's ever had everything just completely fall apart? A few times, right? We've all experienced this at some point in life where you're going in one direction in life and you think, okay, I've got this, I've figured it out, I know my life, I've got this, and then something happens. Okay? We experience that. And then we have to ask ourselves, well, who am I now? What am I going to do now? And what does all of this mean? So this has happened to me a couple times in my life. But the most significant one was a few years ago. I was a personal trainer, and I love personal training. I thought, this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I have it all figured out. I know my life's path. I had a great business. I had a steady flow of clients, a wait list at any given time of the year. I had full boot camps. Times of the year when other trainers would say, oh, it's Christmas, it's a slow time, I would contract out clients to them. I built a machine, a very successful business machine. And I thought, this is the way my life is always going to be, and this is great. Until one day, I noticed I wasn't feeling very well. And I was tired all the time. And I had this nondescript feeling of just not wellness. I didn't feel totally sick, but I didn't feel well. And then I started gaining weight. Now, for a personal trainer or nutritionist to gain weight and not know why, something was wrong. And then my hair started to fall out. And I thought something was really wrong. And then I had days where I couldn't get out of bed. And I'd cancel my clients and say, I'm not well today. But I didn't know what that was. And then I went to my doctor. And I went to her again and again and again, and I kept complaining about these nondescript things. And she said to me one day, she said, you're burnt out. You're burnt out. Now, I'd heard people talking about burnout, and I thought it was this sort of flaky thing, like you're burnt out. What does that mean, you're burnt out? And she said, your adrenal system has crashed. My body can no longer produce enough cortisol to function. Now, the part that I'd been ignoring about my life was I'd had this autoimmune disorder from the time I was 12 years old that I'd carried for 23 years. And I just ignored it and ignored it and ignored it and thought, I'll just push through, I'll push through. Has anyone felt that way before? That your body is giving you signs that something's wrong and you're just going to push through. It's fine, I'll just ignore all that. And now I can no longer ignore it. And she said to me, she said, you can no longer work 5-6 days a week. You can no longer train 10 and 12-hour days. You can work 3 days a week. You can train 4 hours at a time. And then you're going to rest. And she pulled up her prescription pad and she wrote on it, aggressive rest, and handed it to me. Aggressive rest. What does that mean, aggressive rest, right? And so I asked her, I said, what does this actually mean? And she said, you're going to rest. You're not going to work out. You're not going to diet anymore. Your body can handle no stress at this point. You can work just enough to make a little bit of money. And otherwise, you're going to rest. You can walk your dog. That's about as physical as your activity can get. I went from this high achiever, high performer, having everything I wanted, this great business, great life, to I'm no longer making the money I want. I no longer have the lifestyle I want. I don't look the way I want to look. I don't feel how I want to feel. And my identity as a personal trainer is now gone. So what do I do? Who am I now? Without all these labels of who I am, who am I? So I went to an event one day, a networking event, and a man handed me a card and it said, hypnotherapy. And I thought, maybe you can help me. It also said NLP, timeline therapy coaching. I had no idea what any of that was. But I knew hypnotherapy. And I said, I think you can help me. So we went for coffee and we talked. And he said, tell me what's going on. And I told him about the burnout. I told him about all the issues in my life. And I told him about this anxiety feeling I've been having. So I realized looking back, I'd had anxiety my entire life. But I was able to mask it as a personal trainer because I was so active And now that I can no longer do that, all my coping mechanisms were gone. I could no longer work myself out to exhaustion to avoid the crushing feeling that the world was ending. I couldn't do that anymore. So now I was faced with myself, and I couldn't hide anymore. And it was time to deal with me. So I signed up to work with him, and we set up a couple sessions. On the second session, something absolutely magical happened. We were doing timeline therapy, and in the process of letting go of anger, I felt this feeling of healing in my body. I had gone into that session that day with a flare-up of colitis. That was the condition I had. And I almost canceled the appointment because I felt so ill. And I left his chair 3 hours later, and I felt fine. Now, I'm a bit of a skeptic, so I thought, okay, we'll see. I feel okay right now, but what about when I get home tonight? Am I still going to feel okay? We'll test this out. We'll see. And I was fine. And I continued to be fine. And that was 6 years ago, and I have not had a symptom of colitis since. So that was a pretty big convincer for me, and I thought there's something to this work. There's something else going on here. And maybe I can't go back to the life I was living before, but maybe there's something new to explore. So that's what introduced me to NLP, hypnosis, and timeline therapy. Now you've heard a bit about hypnosis, but NLP, what is NLP? It's neuro-linguistic programming. It's your neurology, the human nervous system. Linguistic, language, the language we use to label our world, to describe our experience. It's how we communicate both verbally and non-verbally. And how we communicate with ourselves, it's the language of the mind. And then programming, what are the programs that run up here? What are we doing in here? What are those behaviors that we do unconsciously every day without thinking about them? And how do they produce results out there? Very simply put, NLP is a study of excellence. And then timeline therapy, what is that? Timeline therapy comes out of NLP, and it's like NLP on steroids. That's how I like to explain it. It's using how your mind organizes time. So you have a way inside of you of knowing what's a past thought and what's a future thought by how you encode it in your mind. So that's how you know, say you paid a bill yesterday. You know you did that yesterday, and that you weren't thinking about doing it tomorrow. You know that it's done. So you have a way of knowing what's a past thought and what's a future thought by how you encode it. When we can access that timeline, we can go back to the root cause of a decision or a negative emotion. So let's say anger, for example. There was a time before you had the word anger that you felt angry. There was the very first time you felt anger. And it might not have been a very significant event, but it was the first time you identified that feeling. And then every time you felt that feeling, your nervous system organized it in the same place, in the same way. It went, okay, that's something similar. And it started to group them together. And then at some point, a parent or an authority figure said to you, you're angry. And now you had the label, you had the word to attach that feeling. And once you had that label, something called a gestalt is formed. A gestalt is just how we organize our memories. So the label anger, and every time you felt anger after that, it's like adding another one onto the string, like a pearl necklace. And the goal of timeline therapy is to go back to the very beginning, the root cause, and cut the string. So imagine that if you're holding on to all of this negative emotion in your nervous system, and it's all wired together and it's held very tightly, and if we disconnect it at the root cause, the first event, it has to unravel. There's nothing to hold it together. And what that does is it releases that energy in the body. See, for me, I didn't know that the root cause of having colitis was all this anger I'd been holding on to. And I had literally been stuffing it down and stuffing it down and stuffing it down. And I developed a condition called colitis. And when I realized that, when that anger disappeared, I had this feeling of healing in the body because all that energy had to go somewhere. So that's what we do with timeline therapy and the work I do with my clients, is we disconnect past negative emotions at the root cause. And limiting decisions. We say limiting decisions because a lot of people talk about limiting beliefs, but before you can believe something, you had to decide to believe it. Right? Otherwise, where did it come from? Where did it come from? And isn't that more empowering to say that you decided it? Because here's the thing, if I have a problem and say this is my problem and I put it outside of me, what can I do about it? If the problem's over here, what can I do about something that's outside of me? Nothing. But when I say, okay, this is a problem and it has to be my problem, now I can change it. And that's what we do with limiting decisions. Because if it's just a belief, well, where did that come from? But when I say, I decided this, now I can undecide it. And that's a position of empowerment. So for example, I'm not good enough. A lot of my clients come to me and they say, I'm not good enough. Or I'm not worthy. Or I just can't have what I want, it'll never work for me, nothing works out for me, something like that. And for them to believe that, there had to be a point in time where they decided that that was true. And the moment they decided it, if we can go back using timeline therapy to that moment, they can undecide it and make a new choice for the future. So this whole thing, I went through this experience of watching my entire life unravel, losing everything that I felt was me, to discover what I believe is my true purpose, which is to help people achieve more of what they want in life, find their path of success, and really live a life that they deserve. In our darkest moments come our greatest gifts, and that's what I believe happened with me. But you have to be willing to take a look and finding that gift in there. Now I brought a gift with me, and the gift is a hypnosis recording to help you tap into your ideal perfect day. So if that's something you like, there's a sign-up sheet there, and I'll send it to you. You get added to my list. If you don't want to be on the list, just hit unsubscribe after you get the download, that's fine. But that's something I'd like to offer you today if you're interested in that. And it'll introduce you to a little bit of timeline therapy. All right. Thank you so much for having me today. If you have any questions.
Move forward and past hindrances and obstacles to being all that you can be.